It's 19 hours.
Yeah. Namaskar. Hello and welcome to today's Mantras of Management with Maharishis of Management, as we say. And we have with us Sudhir sir, who has been anchoring this entire series in such a majestic fashion. And out of his 4 decades of impeccable managerial experience, Sudhir sir is really bringing in, being a Maharishi himself, he's really bringing in Chun Chun Kar, the Maharishis of management into the emerging practices of management. So today we would be interacting with, we would have the good fortune of having Mr. Sandeep Alur, who is the director at Microsoft Technology Center. So we welcome Sandeep Alur sir for today's mantras of management we will be receiving from him. As we say, he's an AI enthusiast and he's an aspiring data scientist. He puts it up so elaborately. And he's a cloud practitioner. So these are some of the key buzzwords in the emerging technological spaces. And he's driving technological strategy for customers in India. So a hardcore technologist in his own fashion. And he talks about, yes, about his own company, Microsoft, innovation, best practices, industry trends, and all about technological discussion. So just a more elaborate introduction of Sandeep sir. He has over 22 years of phenomenal experience spanning 3 IT companies. It sums up his professional experience. He started his career working with Genesis Software. It was a mid-sized IT company. Then he moved on to Global Systems Integrated Wipro Technologies, and then one of the largest IT companies on the planet, Microsoft Corporation, and which does have a very, very strong India connection, having its chairperson as one of the eminent Indians out there, and a passionate techie and aspiring data scientist, and most importantly, an evangelist at heart. That's what a Maharishi is all about, just to transform things from the real beauty and passion of it all. And he loves technologies that have a profound impact on human lives. He happens to be a thought leader, a trusted advisor, and a meticulous implementer on the ground. So, trai puri ki puri hai. Thought and advice, and most importantly, being an implementer. And he's an invited speaker at most of the technological conferences hosted by Microsoft. So we are really very fortunate to have him this evening, receiving these mantras of management from the technological perspective. And he's invited the third party and meetups, OSS communities. And he has extensive experience of working with independent software vendors and startups in India. So that's a phenomenal experience. And he has played key roles through his professional career in aligning to the core priorities of the company. And if there is one common thread that has stayed intact right throughout his career, it is his learner's mindset. And that's why I think Sudhir sir has really chosen him, because right from his maiden episode, he is all talking about keeping yourself relevant. And this is a theme across all the rishis we are getting, all the maharishis we are receiving things, having a learning mindset, being contemporary in learning. So that is something which is so very important. And Sandeep sir puts up very elaborately here. And his professional success and personal development are a clear reflection of the constant learning approach that he has adopted till date. And that's his career progression also shows very spectacularly. And his belief is that enterprise architecture in an evolution, and it grows with innovation. And businesses who invest in research and innovation, they thrive in the modern world. And these are about his educational backgrounds. They are just fine. And so with this small brief introduction, the personality, the Maharishi of management this evening is with us, and I pass it on the baton to Sudhir sir, and let the Shastras, let the deliberations start off, and let we all receive that wisdom, that distilled wisdom from the 2 Maharishis over there. Sir.
Thank you, Raghav. Thank you very much. And thanks, Sandeep, for consenting to be with us today, and giving your valuable time to us for a conversation on a theme like mantras of management. And Sandeep, यहाँ पे हम जो भी बात करते हैं, हम उसको इंग्लिश का अपना वी टिपिकली टेक स्पीकिंग लैंग्वेज एंड बेसिकली हमारा जो पर्पस है यहाँ पर वो प्रैक्टिशनर का है.
Correct.
तो संदीप, मैं आपसे शेयर करूंगा कि रिसेंटली अभी राघव एक आल्सो रैन रिकग्निशन प्रोग्राम ऑन गुरु.
Okay.
और मेरा उसमें भी यही कहना था संदीप कि मेरे नज़र में, मेरे अंदाज में गुरु कौन है? जो प्रैक्टिशनर है, जो दुनिया छोड़ के स्क्रीन पे आके बैठे ज्ञान दे, वो तो बहुत आसान है. लेकिन जो वो उस हाफ एन आवर 1 आवर के ज्ञान से पहले और ज्ञान के बाद पूरी तरह दुनियादारी में समाया हुआ है, वही असली प्रैक्टिशनर है.
Sudhir, first of all, thanks for having me. Raghav, truly, thank you for your kind words. In fact, my LinkedIn post is justified today in terms of my bio. I don't know how many of them have read, but you truly did justice in terms of going through my profile there. Thank you so much for that. And again, Sudhir, I look up to you in many ways. We work together, but thank you so much for having me, and would love to, and I'm looking forward to this conversation, honestly.
वंडरफुल संदीप, वी आर आल्सो लुकिंग फॉरवर्ड. तो राघव, मैं सबसे पहले आपको बताना चाहूँगा संदीप के बारे में. आई थिंक टुडे वी हैव अ वेरी यूनिक पर्सन विद अस, जो अगर मैं कहूँ कि ग्लोबल एंड लोकल, आज का सबसे बड़ा थीम अगर आप देखेंगे राघव, वो है ग्लोबल एंड लोकल. तो मैं आपको बताता हूँ कि संदीप जो है उसकी अच्छी खासी एक मिसाल है. वो इसलिए कि ये हिंदुस्तान में काम करते हैं, इंडिया के लिए काम करते हैं, इंडियन जो टीम्स हैं, इंडियन कस्टमर्स हैं, इंडियन पार्टनर्स हैं, उनके संग काम करते हैं. लेकिन जो इनका एजेंडा है, द ओवरऑल थीम जो है, वो ये ग्लोबल से अलाइंड है. तो ये ट्रू केस हैं अपने आप में, कंप्लीट ग्लोबल एंड लोकल. और उसी से संदीप शुरू करते हुए, और राघव एक चीज और बड़ी इंपॉर्टेंट है संदीप के बारे में, ही वॉट एवर आई हैव सीन, जो मैंने देखा है, ही वर्क्स विद वर्चुअल टीम्स. बाय फार, एंड यू कैन अंडरस्टैंड राघव, जब आप एक ग्लोबल रोल में रोल प्ले करते हैं, तो आपकी कितनी जिम्मेदारी आपके कंधों पर होती है, और उसमें फिर आप लोकल प्लेयर्स के संग काम करके वो करते हैं. तो राघव, आज हम संदीप से उसी से शुरू करते हैं. संदीप, ये बताइए, जैसे आप ग्लोबल लोकल, जो आज की कंट्री में भी एक थीम है ये, जब आप वर्चुअल टीम्स के संग काम करते हैं, और स्पेशली जब सारी जिम्मेदारी अगर मैं कहूँ तो वो आपके कंधों पर होती है, आपकी अकाउंटेबिलिटी आपके ऊपर होती है, और जो आपकी वर्चुअल टीम्स होती हैं वो आपको कोई भी किसी भी नजरिए से रिपोर्ट नहीं करती हैं, नॉट इवन डॉटेड रिपोर्टिंग आई विल से. और संदीप, आप उन सब लोगों के संग काम करते हैं, और उनकी जो अपनी अकाउंटेबिलिटी आपने कंधों पे लेके चलते हैं, उन सब वर्चुअल टीम मेंबर्स के बिहाफ पर, ये आप कैसे कर लेते हैं? ये आप क्या करते हैं, कैसे करते हैं, और इसमें आपकी लर्निंग्स क्या है? अब हम चुप हो जाना चाहेंगे, और संदीप, हम आपको सुनना चाहेंगे.
Sudhir, thanks for the question. I think your last statement, the word was learning, right? My belief is any call I'm in, whether a local call or a global, when I connect my colleagues locally or globally, I believe in adding value. If I think I don't add value, I probably won't accept a meeting. I won't be in the call. Right? There's no point in being in a call and just listening and not contributing, having been invited to be part of the call. So my belief is, first things first, bring in thought leadership to every discussion. Again, it's not the question of forcing yourself to contribute. No, it's a question of, if you have a point to make, don't hold back, right? You never know. Your point of view can help one individual out of 100, doesn't matter, but you contributed. I think the intent to contribute probably is one element in me, Sudhir, which I don't let go of an opportunity to do that. In fact, many times when I get invited to talk to professionals, students, entrepreneurs, etc., I don't look at who is coming in and how many people are there. I've been in conference where there are 10 people sitting and I've kind of delivered a talk. If I can influence 10 people, so be it. Doesn't matter. But for me, stage is immaterial. I don't look for how the stage should be. All I'm looking for is, do I have a place on the stage? If I have a place on the stage, I look forward to contribute. And the only way each of us can contribute, my philosophy is, you got to be learning all the time. See, how do you create content? It can't be that I deliver a talk and I talk about the same thing for a couple of years. No, it doesn't make sense. There is no recall value. Now, I believe in instilling recall value. Recall value will only come if you have the learner mindset and you continuously learn. So the intent is to, yeah, there's some background noise. If who is joined, you can go on mute.
Yeah, I've just done it. Yeah, please. Sorry, I'm sorry.
No worries. I think this is part and parcel of any virtual conference. So for me, unless I add one or two words to my vocabulary on a daily basis, it's uncomfortable feeling for me. So the only way I stay true to myself in terms of learning is, yes, did I add two words to my vocabulary in terms of technology know-how? If the answer is yes, I sleep well. The answer is no, I stretch extra over the weekend to learn that. By doing this homework is the only way I can probably be confident in virtual meetings where I can contribute. By the way, only when you contribute, you have recall value. By recall value, you probably be looked up to by individuals. The intent is not to impress anybody. Intent is to be very authentic, right? Bring authentic self to these virtual meetings, because in virtual meetings, attention span is very, very small, right? And you probably get one opportunity to ask a question or answer a question. So if you are authentic, I think your voice gets heard. More so in the current times, connecting to colleagues locally or globally, number one mantra is switch on your video. Make sure people see who you are as an individual, right? Bring your personality. By voice, people cannot make out whether you're authentic or you're just reading out something from written somewhere, right? So switch on your video, make your presence felt, show up as to who you are. Number two, showing up is not by video, participate. So two mantras I carry is show up virtually in authentic way. Second is participate.
Great, Sandeep. So, Sandeep, this is what you spoke about yourself as a person, as a professional, and how do you carry yourself, how do you perform for yourself. Now, if you just try to extend a little bit,
okay,
by saying that when you work with people who are part of your team, virtual team, and you take the accountability and ownership for them, because you commit yourself, for the task.
yeah.
Now, share some of the mantras, some of your, best practices. That how do you make everybody, be part of that integral team, and how do you ensure, not make sure, but ensure that everybody contributes, everybody bring their respective 2 cents to the table to make a dollar. So you're working with the teams, both one is a virtual teams and more so in today's virtual world. Sandeep.
Right. Good question, Sudhir. In fact, number one is, I look at it this way. In the virtual world, all of a sudden, the bigger question mark was sense of belonging. Sense of belonging was questioned by each of us, saying, you know what? While we're working for a company, we've lost touch with the colleagues. Out of sight, out of mind was reality. With location independence, people have gone back to their hometown. They're busy setting up their workplaces. So the connect was a bigger issue. So for me as a leader, with my team itself, I think important to connect on a regular basis, not just formally, not just officially, but I used to conduct this. I used to catch up with colleagues whom otherwise I would have met in corridors or coffee shops, etc., in the office. I used to do this 10-minute chai break, right? So as I end my Friday every week, for the subsequent week, I should set up 5 chai breaks with individuals who are my colleagues, right? So that kind of gave me a sense of belonging to myself in the first place, right? I mean, I also felt disconnected. So by doing this chai break, I think that kind of brought me to a level playing ground where I felt, you know what, yes, I think this is required. Then I started doing with that with my team, right? All of us. See, Friday morning, as part of ritual, we catch up on official work. We talk about it. But Friday noon, casually 3 to 15, chai break invite sent. It's blocked. So everybody comes with a cup of coffee. We discuss politics, sports. Hey, are you faking coffee or do you really have coffee? All the stuff happens there, right? So that was one way for me, for us as a team to stay grounded and connected. That was very, very essential. Now, Sudhir, the question was accountability. That comes second. Unless I establish the bridge has to be established first to start with. Once it was established, you know what was a big deal for each of us to stay accountable? I think autonomy and trust, right? I can't, there's no way I can micromanage individuals. In fact, that was probably practically possible in the pre-pandemic world. You could actually supervise individuals. Now, if you supervise, I think it is about intrusion. It's intruding to one's privacy because you're working from home. Your challenges of working from home. So, can I trust my team members to stay accountable when given an autonomy to deliver on the promise? I think that was essential for me to establish as a leader. So that becomes a foundation for the team. Everybody assumes, yes, we're accountable because we, first of all, a sense of belonging. Number two, there's autonomy that somebody has given to us. There's a trust factor somebody's put on us. So you will not go wrong on accountability. You will actually probably be, you're not obligated, but there is a pull that happens with you because there's a trust factor, right? So instilling trust was very key in the current times, honestly. Yeah.
Yep. Raghav, before I give it to you, I think it will be very appropriate to understand from Sandeep on trust.
Mhm.
Now, Sandeep, we as we understand, Microsoft also lays hajar emphasis on trust as a company.
Yeah.
Now, you know, Raga, if you notice that, what Microsoft is, bringing trust as a concept, as a key characteristic in the, DNA of the organization.
Mhm.
You see the people when they are talking trust very naturally. So, Sandeep, talk a little about, just share with us what does trust mean to an individual, to a team, to a company? What does it give you as an individual, as a professional, as a team, as a company?
Absolutely, Sudhir and Raghav. Here's the deal, right? It was a cultural transformation the company goes through. Every company goes through ups and downs, and there's a change that happens with leadership change.
Mhm.
I think when the company is changing, company was changing, I would say, with Satya Nadella taking over as the CEO. Each of us went through transformation ourselves. In fact, some of the value system that Microsoft has put on the table, it has made me a better person, better individual over a period of time. Right? This might sound like, what, you're praising your company. No, honestly, it's about value system, right? That exists there, which is probably made me a better professional for sure. But I think the bigger gain for me, bigger takeaways, I'm a better individual at home because the value system that the company has demonstrated, right? In fact, I'll tell you this short statement wherein one of the I think fresh graduate who joined Microsoft. It was company meeting in Hyderabad. Satya Nadella had just taken over as CEO, has come down to Hyderabad. The question asked by this fresher was, I want to succeed within Microsoft. So how do I approach? How do I succeed? And shall I do ABC? Right? The response by Satya was, for you, if you think ABC is the right thing to be done, you don't need anybody's permission to do it, right? You don't have to ask your manager. You don't have to ask anybody. So I think that has stuck with me for a long time. Probably this was way back, but every day I feel empowered to do the right things, and to do the right things, I don't have to ask anybody's permission. I think that's a cultural shift each of us have seen. So when we say trust, the trust that the company has put on the table is something that we are the beneficiaries of the trust, and by that benefit we get, I think it has made us I would say subsume that trust factor, and whether somebody is looking at you or not, the behavior is you do the right thing. I think that goes on in our heads all the time, right? Um, that's number one I want to share. Number two, I'm trying to, this is a longer response, but bear with me on this. Number two is, many times we talk about learner mindset, the growth mindset. We talk about trust, fact, accountability. I'll tell you what, this was again, I'm a big believer of these quotes, which remains in me for a long time. I look at Steve Jobs' quote, Mark Zuckerberg's quote. So Satya said this, don't work for Microsoft if you want to really benefit from your talent and your career. Don't work for Microsoft, make Microsoft work for you, right? So look at it this way. That means I want to succeed in my career aspiration. I can't have company decide a prescription for me. So I want to put a prescription where company goes along the lines of my aspiration. So if you make Microsoft work for you, I think that means you're progressing in life, right? So that's my few beliefs I have, and how I operate on a daily basis. So
This is so wonderful, Sandeep. This is so wonderful. And just adding to this, Sandeep, I can only say I have believed, I have experienced, and especially, when we talk of trust, I think it also makes you a better person. It gives you a lot of conviction. It gives you a lot of confidence.
yeah,
Even I think if you have trust at the back, in your DNA, it possibly you offer a very different handshake when you do that.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I agree with you. Absolutely. Yeah.
Uh, uh, I would say, sir, this is really truly mind-boggling, and it's because somewhere the Satya in Satya Nadella, somewhere it came back to the forefront, and it really reposed that trust in the huge organization which Microsoft was, and we all have really witnessed the transformation from a consumer's perspective as well. That
Right.
how the organization has really, and what beautifully sir said was that it is not just the profession per se, it is not just back at the office, but these value systems.
Yeah.
When you get benefited in your personal life, the bond, the compact becomes so strong that it becomes a community. It rather from an organization, it becomes a community. And the Friday coffee, chai pe charcha, jo, whatever you have been doing it out there. So it's really manifesting it beautifully, lovely, lovely. So, so you said one very important thing. I have a add-on supplementary question to it, that you don't hold you back when you get an opportunity to contribute. At times, we all generally we feel shy, and there is some fear factor in all of us, as if how would our contribution would be taken over there. So
Yeah.
how do you cope up with that? What goes on in your mind when your contribution is not accepted or it is countered on the face of it? So what inspires you to contribute despite the outcomes of it all? That
So interesting question. If you look at it, one of the recent survey, Microsoft did this work trend index survey, right?
Mhm.
38,000 employees globally across
Okay.
100 countries. So one of the observation findings was, in the virtual world, it's very difficult to be heard, right? Because imagine there are 10 people in the call, you don't see their emotions, you don't
Mhm.
know whether they're liking the conversation, and you can't make out because many times people may not have switched on the video. So how do you know who is on their toes to contribute? How do you know who is not heard? Now, one of the practice I do as a leader with my team is, whether anybody has spoken that day or not, as a midpoint and at the closure, I go through. You can do this only smaller calls, by the way. I can go through one by one, saying, "Hey, you have any point to make? Any point to make? Any point?" I'm okay to spend 3 minutes just asking people, "Hey, do you have any point to make?"
Mhm.
In fact, people who stayed silent, they have contributed most when I actually asked them, "Hey, do you have anything to add?" Right? So,
Mhm.
so being inclusive is
Mhm.
one trait all of us have to embrace in the current times, right?
Mhm.
Whether you like it or not, it was very easy to be inclusive in the pre-pandemic world, in the physical world, where you could actually see people either not connected to the meeting, or they're uncomfortable in the meeting because you know what, they don't have anything to contribute or ask. So you could probably take cues and make them participate. In the virtual world, very difficult, right? So whether people switch on the video or not, go one by one and ask, right? And second, see what motivates one to contribute. You've seen, in times when a leader asks a question. Let's say my boss and we're all together in a call with my peers. When your boss asks a question, hey guys, this is my question. What are your thoughts? Suddenly you see 10 seconds of silence, right? People wait for others to contribute, and I utilize that opportunity. It is not because I want to intentionally contribute. No, I'll tell you why. As I said earlier, it's difficult to be heard in the virtual world. Now, if these are short calls, and look at the number of people who are in the call, if you go by order, you will never get a chance to speak. Now, when there's nobody is contributing, just grab the opportunity. Be probably the first to break the ice. I'm okay to ask a silly question and break the ice, than be silent. Right? But I don't force myself to do it if people are really jumping in and asking question. And if I genuinely have a question, otherwise, many times I also contribute to break the ice. I mean, I'm honest here, right? Many times you have to break the ice because how do you motivate rest of the folks to contribute? You start participating, have the conversation kick off, and then people will jump in. And see, end of the day, it's all about connecting with people. If your voice is heard once, and probably the leader, if they like, they'll probably come back and say, hey, great point this person mentioned, and that's a recall. During the meeting, if they quote you again, like Sandeep said, like Sudhir said, that's a recall you built in the call. Very relevant in the current times because of the digital, I would say, the bridge each of us have in current times. Yeah, so those are a few things I practice, and I used to practice when the pandemic started, but now it's become part of you, right? You don't have to practice because that's how you come across in calls.
That's really terrific, sir. So one more query which is coming through, that you have traversed through three companies at different level of granularity, and you have given a beautiful, I would say, enunciation of the culture, the emerging culture, management culture at the largest IT corporation of the world. Yeah. How do you see, how can these values, how can this can be really adopted and adapted at probably the smaller, the lean and thin organizations, the smaller ones? So is it something which can only happen with a multi-billion corporation like Microsoft, or the same culture can also be adopted and in some way trickle down in other contexts as well? Like, some thoughts of yours on this.
See, it's probably the hardest thing to be done at a largest company. We always talk about the startup mindset, the startup culture, right? So the smallest of the firms that for example, I started my career at Genesis Software. What stood out to me in that company was the autonomy I had to do things that I liked the most, and also the multitasking was natural in a smaller company. So you get into a habit of multitasking because there is less manpower. So smaller firms, startups, they have this culture ingrained in them. The difficult one is for larger firms because there is a hierarchy that is sunk in. There's a culture that's sunk in. There is also a supervisory approach because of hierarchy. So instilling or giving autonomy to individuals in the largest company is very difficult. It also goes by how the top boss comes across, right? How you structured your organization and team. So I would say, yeah. And again, today we always talk about, hey, I'm a little startup within Microsoft. Right? So that means I have autonomy, and again, there is this approach where there's never die, never say no attitude, right? And you say yes many times. You don't know the solution, but go on a discovery to see how you can make it happen. So that's what startups do, right? They may not have a solution when they meet a venture capitalist, but the belief in terms of the idea is so strong, they'll go back and build it by the time VC comes back in the next 5 days. So I think the cultural transformation is hard in larger corporations, easy in smaller corporations, and hence I would say and I'm glad, what we've gone through as a company as Microsoft. But my journey, 23 years, I think if there's one common thing I've felt myself, thanks to all my bosses, is autonomy part. I think one can probably achieve what you want to if there is autonomy given and a trust entrusted on you. I think that gives you freedom to learn and contribute. Right? And I many times, no, not many times, I try to make that as a foundation in how I operate with my team. Many times I may succeed, but a few times I may fail, but many times I succeed. Right? I think failure is good because the team is liking it or not. Because many, by the way, autonomy has a cost to it. Not everybody will utilize to its fullest, and you might fail miserably. Right? So a lot of individuals need hand holding. Autonomy means they're scared. They feel they'll do mistake, they'll fail, and hence they'll be penalized. No. So there, as a leader, you have to cover up for many things when autonomy is given to individuals, because your neck is also on the line. And somebody is taking autonomy into outside world. That way. Yeah.
So one additional query on this, like, is the emergence of new technological tools for constantly remain informed about the usage of the autonomy is really helping us to really give away that much of autonomy to the subordinates or the team members per se? Because outcomes at times, they have a larger time frame over there. So how, as a leader, you do the autonomy management, if I may put that word? How do you manage the autonomy framework? Ki isko itna autonomy dena hai, isko itna autonomy dena hai. How do you do about it? How do you go about it? Yeah.
Very interesting question. There's no prescription, honestly. You go with individuals, because at the end of the day, you don't want to put people in an uncomfortable zone. There might be people starting the career. There might be people who are seasoned, right? You got to balance it out. So, as a common fabric in the team, people have to realize there is a choice. Right? It is not that mandatorily you have to go and deliver without any help or any questions asked. No, it's a choice. When people think they have a choice in how they operate, I think naturally they flourish. They will perform. They'll look up. They'll actually go out of the comfort zone to get things done. Because one is, when you put autonomy on the table, you also have to take off that fear of failure from them. Because if you give autonomy and they're scared of failure and you penalize them, then there's no point in autonomy, right? So it's okay to fail. My mantra is fail fast. Startup culture. Fail fast, move on. Fail fast. I repeat it many times. You know what? Experiment. You will find a lot of venture capitalists in your company who want to sponsor that idea. But before you put it out outside world, play with the idea, share it with me, right? And it's okay for you to fail in front of me. Don't think that failure in front of a manager is your failure as an individual. No, not at all.
Okay.
Right? If you fail too many times, I think that's learning. The only way to learn is to fail first. Right? I use a term. I never use the term failure. By the way, I always say this is your success, and these are your focus areas going forward. Focus areas is also known as failures that you have to learn going along.
Okay.
Right.
Lovely. Sudhir sir, maybe you would like to take it up.
Yeah. So Sandeep, one more. There was a time, when it was said to be two world, global world and India, maybe. But if you really see in last a decade or so and going forward, I think the gap is actually bridging. Why? Because as the Uber was evolving globally, Ola evolved in India. So like you see, the global platforms as they were evolving as aggregators, you have Indian, platform. Now, when you, especially why you, because you deal with local and global. So when it comes to culture, when it comes to expectations, how do you see the, and this is more for message for today's, newer generation,
Yeah.
that when we are local, we continue to work in India for India. Sometime, for we work for global companies for India, or we work for global companies for global globe.
Yeah.
Some, word of wisdom, that what are the few things which are worth, noting or taking a note of it, and then building on that. Sandeep.
Sure. No, Sudhir, this question probably was very profound pre-pandemic. I'll tell you why I'm saying that. Because there was probably a set rule in terms of the global team versus the local team, on-site versus offshore, right? Um, many times what each of us have gone the last 18 months is not something anybody should go through, but thanks to pandemic at times, because the line is blurred, right? Now look at it. Location independence is something all of us will get, right?
Mhm.
Now,
Mhm.
with location independence, there is honestly no line between global and local. Earlier that
Mhm.
existed. Now we get into calls where there are local teams and global teams. Now it's a very logical cohort that has been constructed to represent the operating model. But each of us should probably embrace global thinking all the time, not really think about, hey, I'm working in India, I'm offshore individual, but I work with a global counterpart who probably holds an umbrella portfolio. No, I don't think that approach works anymore. My
Mhm.
my take is, as individuals, if you may be Gen Z, Gen X, whoever it is, starting your career, early in career, doesn't matter. But wear a global hat, because the lines are blurred, and you have the same tools that people other part of the globe have as well. So I would say bring in global thinking, but execute locally, right?
Mhm.
Align globally, execute locally.
Mhm.
Earlier it was ulta, right?
Mhm.
So you always used to execute in the context of how the global model was. You aligned locally, because locally you are hired by your let's say project manager to work for a project, right? But now I would say align globally and execute locally, because global element is critical for one's success, one's awareness, and one's relevance also. You will not be relevant for long if you align just locally. That means your awareness window is so small, right? That way. I'll give you a simple example. If somebody is a techie or a technologist, right? Now, a lot of how people learn is consume content locally, consume content that has been sent to them locally, etc. But nobody stops you from consuming global content. For example, you work for a company, you always look up to your CEO to deliver something as a messaging. But what
Mhm.
stops you from going and consuming content of competitor CEOs, which is the public domain, right? As a rule, I hear my CEOs, I would say, technical guidance in terms of how industry is evolving
Mhm.
and the key trends. I also watch out for what Sundar Pichai is saying, or
Mhm.
Mark Zuckerberg is saying, or Andy Jassy is saying, right? So you need to construct your vocabulary by global content for you to succeed locally,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? It doesn't work other way. And I always believe that if you are relevant in the industry,
Mhm.
be more relevant for the company.
Mhm.
Don't ever try to be relevant for the company alone, because you will not have an outside in perspective. Always stay relevant for the industry. That means any day you should be able to be grabbed by any company, because you are valuable asset in the industry. Company will always feel that you're more than a valuable asset for the company.
How beautifully Sandeep sir has explained the learning mindset in action. This is, I would say, the distillation of it all, that he's learning from his own CEO and he's also propounding to learn from the competitor CEO and being relevant for the larger space. Now, this is one of the biggest mantras he's really giving us, not just to survive, but to thrive in whichever area you are really working towards. Sir, this is really astounding. Lovely. Lovely. Sudhir sir.
Thanks, Raghav.
So, Sandeep, before Raghav has a last laugh with you, one I would like a kind of reiteration by you, because you have been global, local, and virtual world you have been experiencing, and you are a successful person. Word of wisdom, what you would like to leave for especially today's younger generation, like one you said, keeping video on. Now it may look, very simple, but it has a huge,
Yeah,
impact behind this. So
absolutely.
like this, some, if I may say, word of wisdom, because we are now more and more, either by choice or by compulsion, going to be continue to be virtual.
Yeah,
And imagine the virtual, when you are virtual in a business meeting, when you are virtual in a social meeting, in a personal meeting, maybe with a doctor. Now again, the same set of virtual
correct.
norms, or virtual parameters won't work. Everything will call for some throw
Yeah.
some light on that in the virtual world, because going forward we are going to be more and more virtual, and more so in education and healthcare. Sandeep, yours before Raghav has a last laugh with you.
No, thank you for this question, Sudhir. Here's the deal. Of course, we spoke about the advantage of keeping one's video on. I'll tell you what. By keeping video on, what do you do before you keep the video on, right?
Mhm.
As an individual, you bring in certain level of discipline, right? That means you actually getting ready for work. You probably are you take care of your oral appearance. That's the first thing people do. It's very important to do that, because it's very easy to slip into otherwise not showing video, because I've just woken up, I continue my calls today, right? So by way of switching on the video, you probably sending a message saying, you know what, I am at work. I'm absolutely 100% present in this call, contributing, right? Not switching on the video partly says that either you're multitasking,
Mhm.
or you're not interested,
Mhm.
or this is not a relevant call for you.
Mhm.
Right? These are the signals people send to other side of the world,
Mhm.
right? So by the way, many times I've seen Sudhir while he's walking on the road also he keeps the video on,
Mhm.
because he has a background. It is pleasing for the eyes that whatever is happening behind the scenes is not visible to me, but he's present for me.
Mhm.
So I've seen that as a culture that few of my colleagues in Microsoft do, right? Number one. Number two, out of sight, out of mind, I said earlier, right? It's
Mhm.
easy for people to forget you.
Mhm.
Forget the fact that you may forget people, but you're in a zone where people will not remember you.
Mhm.
So those 10-minute quick chai calls I mentioned, you have to make efforts to ping people. Hey, how you place next week, Friday afternoon, 2 o'clock, 10 minutes chai. Trust me on this one, people jump on those calls saying, man, thanks for doing this because I wanted a breather, right?
Mhm.
That is to establish the bridge. Number three, in my view, is the most important trait one has to follow when you've committed to an individual to deliver on something. Keep up the promise. I tell you,
Mhm.
because people will not have time and appetite to follow up with individuals in the virtual world. It's practically the most difficult task. That means they have to call you, or they have to look up your online status, is online or not, and then send you a message. We are in a digital fatigue right now. Too many messages, too many emails. People, will become difficult. So stay accountable. In if you commit to an individual on something,
Mhm.
fulfill the promise. That's how you actually build rapport and recall value. The
Mhm.
recall value is probably the most undermined trait people, right? People think it's okay not to show up in video. It's okay not to ask questions. It's okay not to be inclusive. No, they're all very,
Mhm.
very simple things, but practicing it is hard. So
Mhm.
I would say these are a few things, Sudhir and Raghav, in terms of how I look at work every day. And also, by the way, you also need to let people know that you're not available on weekends, right? You have to show up as an individual is committed from 8 a.m. on a Monday morning till 6 p.m. on a Friday evening.
Mhm.
6 p.m. to Monday morning, your laptop is shut, you're not available. So that means, you bring in discipline at your end. You also let people know that, hey, this is me, right? That means you can't be a workaholic. You can't be disturbing colleagues over the weekend. You can't discipline colleagues beyond office hours. So those are stuff you have to demonstrate, not mandate from your end. You cannot say, what, don't call me at 6 p.m. Can you put in discipline your end where you don't schedule calls after 6 o'clock? You don't talk work after 6 p.m. on a Friday till Monday morning. That means people know who you are and how you operate. So making sure people understand how you operate is very important, and you have to show that, you have to demonstrate that day in and day out. That way, your personality is visible and people understand who you are in the virtual world.
And Raghav, I think Raghav, it is also about learning, I think, new norms. So I will share before Raghav, I give it to you. I will share. A while back, we had hosted the current Chief Minister of Andhra Pradesh when I was with Thomson Reuters, and we hosted him in office, and he was making online notes on the smart device.
Okay.
So what he did before the meeting started, he made a declaration. He says, look, everyone, I will be making, my notes on the device. Now, why did he could have thought that time he was a minister and he was a son of a chief minister. He could have easily thought, so what? But what, he did that. And he did mention, he says, why I'm making this declaration to all of you, because there were at least, I think, 15 or 16 people in the room from industry. He says, so that you don't get an impression. What Sandeep, you said that, about being present.
Yeah.
He says, so you don't get a feeling that I'm doing WhatsApp, I'm checking emails and all that.
Yeah.
I'm very much there in the meeting. But I think these new norms also, I think they're important to learn as we, adopt the new world.
True.
Very well said, Sudhir. In fact, that's so critical. Many times I've seen leaders at Microsoft do that, saying, hey, by the way, I'm making notes, just FYI. So that your head is down, right? People shouldn't think that you're doing something else while you switch on the video. I mean, that becomes like a tick mark activity and my video is on.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think in today's session, what Sandeep sir has really presented is a kind of a conjugal set of mantras. When he says about trust, he then backs it up by saying that it has to be backed up by being authentic. Now, if you are authentic, the trust in you would really come. So there is a check and balance in his mantras, what he has delivered today. When he says about autonomy, he, in the same breath, when he releases it out like a yoga, autonomy would come with accountability. Now, so it is all balanced out, and that is what has really emerged. And the way sir has presented the whole learning mindset, that is really truly terrific. And we primarily, when we engage with the young learners, the context of management, the context of change at a global corporation, and the context of change at the young learners at the schools who were just taken unawares about the lockdown for 18 odd months. Yeah. But the way they have really transformed themselves by adopting technology in some way or the other, their experience has been quite stellar. They say that now they have got the tools to really pinpoint that which students are really paying attention. Their attendance data is coming in a big way, that how much of the time they were present, and more such things are coming in, how much the participation is happening. So for the young learners, this digital world is becoming more real than the actual world. Some of the school principals say that we will probably, even after the lockdown opens up, we will have the digital ecosystem because that is more closer. Now we can have more conferences. We are really serious about it. And that's where Sandeep sir said that being a lifelong learner, it matters the most. Earlier, we used to spend so much of time in just commuting, just for a small conference of 5-10 minutes. Now the cultural shift has really happened. And if it can happen at such a humongous corporation, as sir said himself, that a cultural change, don't work for Microsoft, let Microsoft work for you. Now this is a paradigm shift. वो John F. Kennedy की बात है कि ask not what the country can do it for you, what you can do for the country. So in that very context, how these organizations, how these platforms, like one of our professors way back at IIT Kharagpur used to say, we have given you the ecosystem. Now make the best use of it. There is a government establishment, there are professors, there are labs. Now so accountability and responsibility is somewhere coming in. That's what Sandeep sir has mentioned immensely well. And that is what is all about the learning mindset, that if I'm really keen about it, I cannot fraud, I cannot make things beyond a point. And for us, we feel that the word has become more real. The connectivity has become more real. The closeness with which I can interface with Sudhir sir probably was not happening when we were in the hustle bustle of a large auditorium. It was all missed out somehow or the other. So I think it was a terrific learning, sir, and loads of inspiration. And the conjugal pairs, what you have presented, there's a balancing aspect of it all. What you have really given it to us. And any closing words, Sudhir sir? So that will be.
No, for me, the closing word is only, trust, I think, makes
Trust.
you,
Yes.
trust makes you stronger. Trust
Yes.
can make you create larger team, physical, virtual, any team, and trust can make you achieve the unachievable.
Yeah.
Sandeep, your last words, and we will close with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Honestly, thanks for hosting me this evening. I think your questions made me reflect on my belief in how I operate, and truly thank you so much for that. I would say authenticity is not easy to demonstrate. Be authentic in everything you do. You might success will come down the line, right? And don't go after success. My simple mantra is everything you do, be authentic, and if your actions are a classic manifestation of that word called or authenticity, I think each of us would go a long way, and building bridges becomes very easy, right? And again, it's easy to get derailed, but it's difficult to practice that the trait of being authentic. So my final statement is, be authentic in everything else, everything you do, and the rest will follow.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for illumining us with your terrific mantras of management, which are really anchored into self-awareness and the civilizationally assured leadership, which remains the two buzzwords, the core words, foci of this entire series. Thank you so much, Sandeep sir, and thank you so much, Sudhir sir, for really introducing to the larger audience another Maharishi of management this evening. Thank you so much. We'll close it now. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for